You can only be triggered if you are holding the ammunition. And what if your triggers reveal a truth that could change your life? Are you ready to hear more? Great, grab your cuppa and let's dive right in. Welcome back to the Seeking Simplicity podcast, and I would like to start by extending my apologies for not having uploaded an episode for a couple of weeks. It's been a little crazy. For the middle part of July, I was on a really intense 7-day training. It was running live from Australia, so I was working from midnight through till 2 o'clock the following afternoon. And I had every intention of having all the energy and the inspiration to come record a podcast and put it out the week I was away. And to be quite frank, I did not have the mental or emotional or energetic availability to do so. The following week, I came home on the Sunday, and on the Tuesday, my mum went into hospital. So she's still there now. She's fine. But it's been a lot of traveling up and down the hospital, making sure she's okay. And honestly, I was just like, I have to put my family and my health first. And I know that you will appreciate that because that's part of seeking simplicity, making the right choices for us in the right moments and seasons and cycles of our life. However, I am now feeling a little bit more energized, and I wanted to come and share some stuff with you about this training, which was absolutely life changing. There's so much there, it would be silly to try and get it into one episode. So I'm starting off this one particularly about triggers because this was the thing that transformed the training from something that I really didn't want to do to something that at the end of it I was like, oh my God, I will never be the same again. Now, if you would like to see that transformation in real time, you absolutely can, because while I was away, I decided just impromptu to actually, after the end of every session, to go through and share with my clients inside my personal transformation program what was happening. And I did it the good, the bad, and the ugly. And trust me, there's a lot of bad and there was not a lot of ugly in the beginning days. What was so beautiful is that over the course of the 6 videos that I did live inside the group, the clients came back and said, oh my God, we literally watched you transform. We saw the physical change in your body and in your face. We saw, or we heard the change, the transformation in your voice. We felt the transformation in our energy, in your energy. And subsequently, every single one of the ladies in there has signed up to continue their journey with me one-to-one after the personal transformation program ends in October. That's how powerful this experience was. And over the coming weeks, like I said, I'll deliver stuff. But if you would like to grab those videos and watch them for yourself every day this week. So I am now on, I think I'm Tuesday, the 29th of July, 2025. So yesterday, the first video came out. There's a second one today, and there's a video every day up to and including Saturday. They will stay inside my Facebook group, which is called Seeking Simplicity, and there will be a link in the show notes. Go watch them in order and just watch the transformation for yourself. If you put personal transformation video in the search bar, I've labeled them 1 through 6, and you can watch them in order. Honestly, please go watch it because you will learn and take away so much that with nothing else you can implement into your life and create change for yourself. So with that being said, let's go back to the training and why I'm starting off with this whole thing about triggers only being relevant if you're holding the ammunition, and where is there a truth. When I booked the training, I'm going to say I booked it maybe like 4 months ago, something like that. And I was so excited. So I did my NLP training, neuro-linguistic programming, around about 10 years ago. And I just came across this lady completely accidentally, or was it, several months ago on Instagram, and she was talking about embodied NLP, and I started watching her content and I really liked it. And when I found out that I could go on her live training, which runs in Australia on Zoom, I'm like, I'm in for it. Booked myself a beautiful Airbnb, and I was really excited by the process. And I would already decided that would set myself up for transformation by like taking all my food, eating really clean, just drinking water, limited coffee, all the things. So I went fully prepared. A few days before I It didn't help that like I got COVID about a week and a half before the event, so I really, really felt unwell. And I noticed that as the time to go away approached, I really didn't want to go, and I started to get super angry and super anxious and super like this sense of unsafety in my body. By the time I got to the Airbnb, which is an absolutely beautiful Airbnb, I should say, I was really, really angry, and I really honestly just wanted to go home. And the only reason I didn't is because the people inside my personal transformation program are getting an 8 week NLP personal transformation journey as part of their experience. I'm like, I've got to stay here. And for the first 2 days, everything that the trainer, the teacher, the coach said, everything she said, everything she did, basically like peed me off to the highest level. I felt so angry. Everything that she did annoyed me. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't believe that. And it was just like the language in my head was mean. I was a mean girl inside my head. I was massively triggered by the women when they started to cry or when they asked for help. And yet I was celebrating the guys and they got upset. I was massively triggered by people being like really nice to each other. It was like trigger galore. I'm not kidding you. Like I was just not nice. If you was in my head, you wouldn't have been my friend because it was nasty in there. At some point through day two, she said you can only be triggered if you're holding the ammunition. And whilst I've heard this analogy in a different way, so if you've ever read Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie Ford, she likens it to when you get triggered, imagine that your body's like covered in almost like electric sockets, plug sockets. And when you get triggered, it's because you've got a socket that's open. Everything else, every other kind of like thing that might have triggered you in the past, you've dealt with it, you've healed from it. You're not wounded anymore, if you like, but you've still got these open wounds, which are like electrical plug sockets. And when you get triggered, that's just the socket being activated. So I knew this concept. I've taught and coached on this concept, but something about the way that she said it about you can only get triggered if you're holding ammunition, and me being in full on trigger and complete biatch mode, I'm not going to lie. I was like, I have to lean into this. And in that very moment, and I wrote this in my journal, in that very moment, I wrote, I'm making the decision now to lean into and listen to my triggers so that I can find the belief that I'm holding that's creating the trigger. And at that same time, I also made the decision that I would be in 100% belief that this was for me and it would 100% work. I just want to say actually that before I even started the training, so when I got to the Airbnb, I sat out in their beautiful garden. They had this garden bar. I sat out in the garden bar and I wrote 3 or 4 sentences. And the first one was, really don't want to be here. What the F am I doing? This better be bloody worth it. And I can't believe I'm putting myself through this. These were the 4 things that I wrote. That's how miffed I was at being there. And then when I wrote those things down, like I'm willing to lean in and to listen to every trigger and find the belief that I'm holding in my mind and my body, and I'm willing to believe that this will work 100% and everything is for me, everything started to shift. That's when my transformation really started to happen. Now, let me just revisit the whole lean in and listen to every trigger. Because when I talked about like finding the belief, if you are triggered by something, even though we know that for the most part, when you feel triggered, it's unconscious and it's uncomfortable. So something that you see or something that you hear creates this instantaneous, often unconscious reaction in your body and brain that feels uncomfortable. The most common emotions that I see people react with are anger, guilt, shame, embarrassment. They're the big 4. I mean, but you could any emotion you could be, you could trigger. And we talk about trigger mostly in the negative. I mean, you could walk into a room and you could smell aftershave and it could remind you of a granddad, as an example, or you can smell a food cooking and it reminds you of a holiday. We tend, generally, I don't know why we tend not to call those triggers. Triggers are the things that tend to like aggravate us, that make us feel uncomfortable, that make us feel bad, that make us feel like just icky in some capacity. In order to be triggered, if we think about what ammunition we're holding, we could think about the ammunition being a belief. Even if the trigger is an experience that you have had, there's a very good chance you're holding a belief, a story, an internal representation, as in a picture in your mind about that experience. And that is what is causing the ammunition. So I was like, okay, so when this trigger happens, like, why is everything she's saying annoying me? Why are women crying? Why is that annoying me? Why is, I was just willing to lean in. And honestly, I uncovered some shizzle that I didn't even know that I had. Let me tell you, the being the triggered around the women getting upset and getting vulnerable and asking for help was way bigger of a trigger than I was expecting. I work with women all the time and hold great space for them. What it showed me is that I have greater capacity for greater compassion when I am less masculine. Now, I'm not making any blame, shame, or judgment here. I'm going to just say that my mum, God bless her, is very independent and always has been independent. She would rather do it herself than ask for help. She just gets on with stuff. And I mean, she's sitting even right now, she's in the hospital ward and she's getting up and she's helping everybody, right? Because she's the only one that's getting herself up and getting herself dressed and walking around. Like she's a strong woman. And I look at my children now and I notice how my children have leaned further into masculine, they do feminine. Don't like to ask for help, don't like to show emotion, don't like to feel vulnerable. And that was a really big shock for me. And what I made that decision there, in that moment, I made that decision, okay, I need to learn how to access my feminine more. Not just from a compassionate point of view, but from a sexuality point of view, from an intimacy point of view, from a not having to do this on my own point of view. And so I actually decided to sign up to another program that this lady runs, and it's called Enrapture, and it's all about connecting with our feminine wisdom, our divine sexuality, the I think it's like the goddess trilogy, our moon cycles, our menstrual cycles, like it's a whole thing. I'm all over it like a rash because that I was really quite upset with myself for having that immediate reaction. And at the same time, the only reason I found that because I leant in and be like to ask myself like, what is this trigger here? And there was definitely something, some unconscious belief around, oversharing, vulnerability. Like it just felt really uncomfortable in my body, and I don't want that to be true for me. So I want you to think about when we get triggered, you are holding a belief, or you're holding on to the energy of an experience that you've had that's created a belief, an internal representation, a wound that means that you get triggered. I'll give you another personal example just so you kind of know where I'm going with it. I had disordered eating for around about 20 odd years of my life from the age of 12. And in the past, not now, but in the past, if there was any comment around how I looked, my weight, if I'd lost weight, if I'd gained weight, anything that was appearance related would be a massive trigger for me. And I would immediately go into this kind of like state of feeling inadequate. And but then I would express that as anger. So just on a side note, for if you have somebody in your life that expresses a lot of anger, be curious about whether it could actually be covering up things like hurt and sadness, and they don't know how to deal with it. So anger is the best form of response that they have created for themselves. The second thing that I've got here as well is that I decided in that moment as well, be willing to challenge the belief. So that's what I did. I was like, okay, I've clearly got some block around my feminine. I don't want to have that experience in my life. How can I not have that? I'm going to do this program with this woman and other members of, her team so that I can learn how to tap into my feminine wisdom, sexuality, all the things. Now, that second part of the question is really, really important, being willing to challenge the belief. I work with a coach who's got a big group program, and one of the best things I ever heard her say was make every single bit of coaching for you. So if you are ever in an opportunity in a space where somebody is getting coached, it's not particularly your question, or there's some great conversation going on, lean in and listen hard, and you ask yourself, how do I make this for me? How is this coaching for me? How can I use it in my life? How can I make this valuable? Because let me tell you, when you start to ask questions like that, you open up your mind and you make your world bigger. The triggers that we're talking about today have been created unconsciously. They've created these unconscious filters in your brain through which you receive every single piece of information in your entire life. And without even knowing it, your brain is deleting a lot of that information. It's distorting other bits of that information, and it's generalizing the rest. And it just spits back at you what it thinks is important. You don't get a choice in that process until you raise your awareness. That's why there is a saying, you do not see the world as it is, you see the world as you are. So if you are constantly seeing things in your life that you don't want to see, be willing to go and change the filters. And from a visual perspective, I like to liken it to when you go to the opticians and they put all those different lenses down in front of your eyes and they go like, how does it look now? And then they take one out and they put another one in, how does it look now? Imagine that going on inside your brain. And all the billions of pieces of information that come in per second, your brain's having to filter it really quickly through these glasses. And it's feeding back to you what it wants you to know, not necessarily what you choose to know, unless you start to learn how to use your brain for yourself. So being willing to have these triggers, and instead of fighting for the belief that's creating the triggers, you open up your mind and your world by saying, what if I challenge that belief? What else would be possible for me? So through these 7 days, with that mentality, I was able to learn a lot more about myself that I didn't realize was holding me back. I've been willing to lean into femininity. I've been willing to learn into the power of I'm going to call it harder coaching, for want of a better word. This woman is a badass coach, but there were times when I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. Because in my brain, prior to the training, that would have been unhelpful. I would have said, you're creating more trauma, or you're making this woman feel shame, or this or that. Now, that could be true. And what I noticed over the rest of that week is that every single woman that got coached that I felt uncomfortable around literally blossomed over the rest of the training. So I want you to be really mindful of the beliefs that you hold on to, that you're very protective over, and make sure that they really are for your highest good. And this is not about being right or wrong. I think it's more about being open rather than closed, curious rather than like set in stone. And it really is very, very life-changing. Now, I'm not saying this is about you going and changing your values or your boundaries or anything like that, but I am just saying be willing to be curious. Because like I say, once I decided to lean in and to listen and be willing to challenge that belief, my mind opened, I heard things differently, and I had the most incredible personal transformation that has already shown massive impact in my business financially and energetically. So what I want to just offer you today, like I say, is just be willing to go into those triggers. Please don't go over to the Facebook page, watch those videos. Let me know what you think about them. Comment and tag me and tell me what you learned, what triggered you, what you want to know about, and I will come in and and respond to those comments, because honestly, I've been in this game a long time, and I wasn't expecting it. I bought the course for thinking that I was going to just up level my skill set. I bought what I thought what I needed. What I wanted. I got what I actually needed that I didn't know that I needed. Just absolutely crazy. And on the back of that, I fly out to Australia in November to do my master practitioners, and I don't like flying, not one little bit. So I just want to say to you, like, lean into the triggers. It's not a bad thing. It can change your life. It can change your entire world. And please go watch those videos. And thank you again for being part of the Seeking Simplicity podcast community. I will speak to you next week.